Journals who write for sites like PCGamer, The Gamer, Kotaku, and Polygon are wrong 95% of the time, and whenever they try to act professional, they get pointed and laughed at, and that's exactly what's happening right now with PCGamer, because they are getting roasted for their recent article titled Stalker 2 has almost single-handedly saved 2024 from being an absolutely rubbish year for gaming, when that just isn't the truth. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, yes, I would concede that in 2024 we've seen a record number of failures, games that we've been waiting a decade for that have launched in an absolutely disastrous state. They're just not high quality. They do not contain the content that people expected, like with Dragon Age the Veilguard. They're buggy and they're broken. There's so many problems with the current state of the gaming industry, but that doesn't mean that there were not good games to release this year. It was not a rubbish year for gaming. That's the truth. And just to get into this article a little bit, so that you can hear how they sound and how they like to pat themselves on the back for being professionals. It starts off with saying, when PC Gamer goes into hibernation over the holidays, we'll be leaving you with the traditional treat of our Game of the Year awards. First of all, I wish that they'd stay in hibernation after the holidays, but why do we care about your Game of the Year awards when you sit here constantly and say, oh my gosh, this game is the best of the year, there's nothing else? That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous statement to say it's been a rubbish year for gaming. That means that we should not take your Game of the Year awards seriously. And to be fair, I don't think most gamers do. Yeah, sure, we might watch your award show to see what you're saying, but that doesn't mean that we take you seriously. It says, though, I've got to admit, it was incredibly hard this time thanks to the knock-on effect of the pandemic and the tragic axing and savage pruning of so many studios. 2024 has been a pretty bleak year. Delays and disappointments have become the norm. And they talk about how they confess that a couple of their personal Game of the Year nominations, like games that were undeniably fun, which I would absolutely recommend to people regardless of the year, but they can't pretend they're actually passionate about it. If you are sitting here admitting that you are not passionate about the video game industry, leave. Nobody cares. Bye-bye, losers. Metaphor, for instance, is probably their favorite JRPG of all time, even better than Persona 5, but even with that still fresh in my mind, it wasn't quite enough to wash away the sense that when I look back on 2024, I'm not going to recall it with any fondness. And then Stalker 2 arrived. Now, I've been live streaming a playthrough of Stalker 2, and I do think that it's pretty good, do not get me wrong, but it is nowhere near the quality of Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade, fucking Shadow of the Erdtree, Princess Peach, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There's a mega list that I've come up with of games that have released this year that have been really good, but just to name a few, Stalker 2 is nowhere close to those levels. And yes, I do think Stalker 2 has a lot to offer. It's extremely fun, but it is very buggy and glitchy. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who are forgiving them for this, saying that they're going to patch it, and that will be fantastic. And I really hope that they do put a lot of time and effort into it, because I think without those bugs and glitches, it could be a very fantastic experience. But on the flip side, I still can't look past them. This is the way that they decided to release it, and therefore I'm going to judge it by it, and it's just not up to the same level of quality as so many other titles this year. They talk about how they have not played nearly as much of GSC Triumphant Sequel as I would have liked, largely thanks to the derelict husk that is my treacherous body. Okay, why do we care about all of this? I'm sorry you have like medical problems, but that doesn't mean that you have to constantly talk about them in your articles. Like, just talk about the video game. Or if it's an article where you're talking about maybe your experiences with the video game, sure, you can mention one or two things about yourself or about the way that you felt about a game, because that's kind of what reviewing is. But I'm talking on a personal level. Yet I've still spent as much time as I'm physically capable of hanging out in the zone, and when I'm laid up in bed, it's all I can think about. Stalker 2 is not remotely our best reviewed game of 2024, and to be clear, I haven't read another review that aligns with my own feelings towards the game more than ours. Josh is the perfect Stalker reviewer. He has a love of the strange and a high tolerance for jank, but he still recognizes that its abrasiveness and rough around the edges quality can sometimes be detrimental. But they talk about how it's still the best thing to happen in 2024. Now, I am going to have to disagree. Again, while yes, there have been a lot of failures this year, there are also a lot of fabulous games to release. Just a quick heads up before we get into this list, I've streamed the majority of these titles. If you go to the playlist tab, you can see all of the games that I've streamed throughout the year and over the course of my channel, of course. And in the last stream, I always give a thorough review with my thoughts. And here are games that I would rate like a 7.5 and higher. Pal World, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2, Princess Peach Showtime, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, First Descendant, Beyond Good and Evil, the remaster. We're, of course, never going to get Beyond Good and Evil 2. Rip that game. First Descendant, Knitsugami, Little Kitty Big City, Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot, Lollipop Chainsaw, Repop, Space Marine 2, Silent Hill 2, The Legend of Zelda. Here's a couple of games that I haven't gotten a chance to stream yet. Metaphor, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Balatro, Batman Arkham Shadows, Visions of Mana, which I'm very excited to finally get around to playing. Same with a lot of these games. I have played some of them off stream like Metaphor. And then Mario and Luigi Brothership. So we are talking about a lot of fantastic games. And there's also ones that I didn't list here that I didn't even think of off the top of my head because, again, I came up with this list very quickly. There's games, of course, that I'm missing, like Dragon Ball Z, Sparking Zero, the Shadows of the Damned remake. I mean, we're talking about a lot of titles that people still have seriously loved throughout 2024. And yes, if I put together a comprehensive list of games that failed this year or games that people did not like, it would be just as long, but it's not like there has been nothing to release in 2024 that we can sit here and praise because there are a lot of games. It's just a fact. I say this all the time, even though I highly criticize a lot of games like Dragon Age the Veilguard and Concord, Flintlock the Siege of Dawn, Dustborn, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, I still want video games to succeed because I still love video games. I still want this industry to thrive, and I do think that, yes, it's extremely important to sit here and talk about the successes we have seen throughout the year, and that is exactly what I am going to do. There's a lot of people saying things like, you can tell that people don't play games and only talk about them. Yeah, because if this individual, Fraser Brown, had actually been playing video games throughout the year, they would see the bad state of Stalker 2. And again, I think that the core of what is there is really good. I think that the gameplay is super fun, but I think it's going to take a couple of months worth of patches. And then sure, I think that it certainly could go against some of the games that I've listed off, but I don't think that it's anywhere close to being the best game of the year. And of course, they're allowed to have their opinion, but we're also allowed to sit here and criticize it and ultimately roast them for it. While not a perfect game, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was fun to play. This is also another game I've seen a few times. The hell are they smoking? Because I want some. So many good games came out this year. This one wasn't impressive to me, and they sit here and wonder why we don't take them seriously anymore. And it's articles like this. They sound absurd. If they just said it was a pretty good game that they felt shined above a lot of others, then sure, I would sit here and agree with that. But to say that it almost single-handedly saved 2024 from being an absolutely rubbish year for gaming is absurd. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.